Okay. So welcome everyone. This is our very first meeting as a group of parents. What we're trying to do is build community and accountability amongst parents. So if you would go ahead and mute yourselves so that everyone is able to hear me. And if you're getting any feedback from me as well, that is interrupting, just send us a message so we can correct that. As homeschool parents, we know it could get really lonely, especially during COVID. We want our kids to be able to meet with other kids, and we don't even know really um, about other parents that we are introducing our kids to, their families. So we decided, we're gonna shoot two birds with one stone, create homeschool groups that for parent support. And as parents get to meet time after time with the same group of parents, and we're hoping this will be small, intimate groups, not like the Facebook groups. We have the Facebook groups where we can always go to ask our questions, but it's not the same thing. So we meet to support each other. This is where I would come to basically tell you I'm going crazy and I don't know what to do. And I'll be able to really offload my heart. And you can also share what's going on, and we can share what has worked. Someone could share what has worked in one situation, in the same situation, and maybe hold me accountable to the goals that I have for my homeschooling journey, which is not possible in those large Facebook groups. So I will go ahead and share my screen. We do have a document here that will help guide this conversation. Okay, so we call them homeschool support groups, HSGs. And what HSGs, they are small groups, and we'll be getting together on a weekly basis for 8 weeks for the accountability and support on our homeschooling journey. For now, we say for 8 weeks because this is our very first one, and we want to try. We say try. We really hope we can keep the same parents in the same group, because I have done accountability groups before and they were extremely helpful. In the beginning, they could be rough, but as you go down the road, you start to build trust after meeting with the same parents over and over, and that helps you become vulnerable. So from now on to the end of 2021, we'll be meeting with the same group of parents, and our goals are to build deeper relationships, help each other solve problems, and to create a space to learn from each other. Why do we need these? Because groups are different. There are many groups, but different families and different stages and different needs. That's the Facebook groups. But our distinct offering, which we had about 40, really 39 sign up to be part of this. And the times we could not make all the times meet. So we chose this one time and we decided we'll record it and send it out to everyone. So we have curated small groups that are going to meet repeatedly. It's parent-led. It's not a company. It's not led by company. It's not led by coach. It's led by the parents themselves who are in that group. And it's a small group space where you get to be vulnerable, you develop deeper relationships and deeper connections, and you learn in those groups, you grow, you fail, and repeat. And it's created based on our needs and availability. Like I said, this is our very first cohort. So we're gonna all get together and make mistakes together and learn from each other. The structure is weekly 1-hour meetings. It doesn't mean that as you create those connections, you cannot meet as needed. If you decide you want to meet as needed during the week, this is basically your virtual co-op. You get to do with it whatever you all decide to do as a group. For the first 15 minutes, everyone does a quick check-in. This is a proposed structure, and you can change it when you get together as a group to whatever fits your group. But we are proposing that when you get in the first 15 minutes, you do a quick check-in, name, location, number of kids, how long you've been homeschooling, and maybe one high and one low of your past week. And for the next 45 minutes, each person gets to share every other week. So we'll have one person at a time, they'll share a personal or homeschool challenge. And then the group will, it's basically like a hot seat. You have one individual. And since we made them smaller, you could actually have two individuals share each week you meet, and then two different individuals share the next week. So they get to get the hot seat and they share a personal challenge and a homeschool challenge, and the group shares ideas and experiences to help. And if it works out to where the time is managed well, and we have about 3 to 4 individuals, parents in a group, we can actually have everyone share each week. So a key roles that we think will make for a successful group is you select a moderator, and it helps if it's the same person every week. What the moderator does is they schedule a meeting link. It could be on Zoom. If you have a paid Zoom account, you can meet for 1 hour. But if not, Google Meet is free for 1 hour meetings. So that's what the moderator does. They schedule a meeting link. They share that with the group. They keep time and they gently let whoever is talking know that, hey, it's time to start rounding up so the next person can talk, and they take attendance. So you also select a note taker, and this note taker just takes notes of the discussion for personal record keeping, so that you could say that we all share goals at the beginning of when we first meet. We share our goals. This is our goals for the next 8 weeks for our homeschooling journey. And the note taker takes notes of those goals, puts them on a spreadsheet, so that we can keep checking with each other on how they're meeting their goals. And during the meeting, if say you have some recommendations, the note taker can also make note of those recommendations. And we can share those insights with a bigger community to help other parents. So some ground rules and recommendations is that when we get into those smaller groups, it would be great if you keep your video on the whole time. It helps others connect. They also want to know that they don't have someone else looking in on the group. It's just you because we really value privacy of the parents. So keep your video on. No one is here to judge you or your environment. We are all homeschool parents. We know that our homes are all messed up, so no one is judging you on that, because we can either teach or clean or cook well. We can only do one well or two well each day. We can do all three each day. So yeah, be muted when you're not speaking so that whoever is talking gets heard without any distractions. And on Zoom, if you use Zoom, just use the grid view so that you can see everyone's face. And be respectful, try not to talk over each other, and keep all information confidential. When I take part in accountability groups, when it comes to information shared in there that is confidential, I don't share that even with my spouse. We know that for those of us who have partners, sometimes they get to hear everything that goes on in our lives. But when it comes to accountability groups where individuals get to share their heart, sometimes they'll be sharing really deep things about their families and things that they are going through. Please keep all that information confidential and be respectful of this commitment. We want to be able to develop close relationships. We know it's virtual, but it's very possible that you can get to develop really close friends from these relationships that sometimes last a season or a lifetime. So be respectful. If you say you're going to be here for at a certain time, certain day of the week, make sure you keep those, because if you miss 3 meetings, you may get to be removed, because we want to create that consistency that creates an environment where parents can be vulnerable with each other. And that's where I get Deborah to come in, and she's gonna throw us into our groups. First, since we don't have all 40 here, I don't know if we want to still do breakout into our groups, because we had actually broken you off into groups of 3 to 4 based on availability.
Yeah, so based on the survey that was sent out, we've done a lot of matching. There's a lot of different availabilities in this group, but we thought maybe we could actually spend some time. It was cool actually having y'all realize, you know, we've got 2 people in Connecticut. We've got a couple, like we've got someone else in North Carolina with Quinta. So we just wanted to give some space during this session today to just get to know each other a little bit and maybe practice what it'd be like to be in one of these HSGs. So I know that not everyone is like able to be on camera. Maybe we can pause the recording actually. Let me pause. Okay, and if you want to go off camera for the record portion, that's totally reasonable. But we're just recording, as we said, for other parents who are not able to be present for the presentation. Okay, so over the years, as Quinta has mentioned, both Quinta and I have been part of many different support and accountability groups, and we just want to share some best practices for what we see works really well. So best practice number 1 is it's best to share more experiences as opposed to advice. So as we just saw with this little practice round we had, Quinta did not say, oh, you should really, you know, do this with your daughter, etc. But she was just saying, in my experience, homeschooling with my kids has brought me closer to my, has given us more of a chance to connect and bond. And so sharing, again, more of an experience. So I'm gonna, I think there's a lawnmower in the background. Okay, number 2 is to lead with vulnerability. So to be empathetic, to be generous, to share some of your deeply personal concerns as well. As I was pretty amazed that all of y'all felt comfortable to share some of those very deep, vulnerable things that you're thinking about, and for the rest of the group to receive that with empathy and generosity, and to hold that space to just allow people to share these very tricky issues. That's the reason we've made this, is to create a support group. It can be an emotional support group as well as a more accountability type of group as too. Number 3 is to create a safe and non-judgmental space. Similar to the leading with vulnerability, we want to create a space where people can share these moments that are, yeah, that can be really hard, and we don't know who else to talk about it with, but we can talk about it in these HSG groups. And just to keep in mind, we're all on our own timelines. We're all ahead or behind in different things. You know, some folks might think that they're just not, they're just like, you know, falling behind everyone else who's homeschooling, or they're not doing the right thing. And, you know, there are good days and bad days. And that's just how it is when you're doing something as challenging and as individualized as homeschooling is. And finally, as discussed before, we want to keep this confidential. A lot of the stuff that will be shared isn't stuff that, you know, I think most of us want to see on social media about other people, or maybe not necessarily something that we would be comfortable sharing if we knew that someone might share it with their partner. As Quinta mentioned earlier, you know, she doesn't even share these issues, like her accountability stuff with her life partner, let alone with anyone else. So again, we want to make that leads to a safer space. In terms of how to frame this second part of the HSG, so after the introductions, then we have we suggest offering space for someone to ask a question that everyone else can give input or feedback on. And we just have some suggestions on what would make a great question for that second half. Looking for things that are a little more specific and a little more specific, difficult situations, somewhere between a rock and a hard place. Things where really you're just not sure what to do in a very concrete way. So not something abstract, something a little bit more specific. We'll get into examples in a second. Maybe it's something where you're encountering a new problem, or maybe it's something with a problem that you've faced for a while, but there's a new angle to it. Ideally, it would lead to some open-ended discussion, and it would be a situation where different experiences and perspectives would help you sort out this challenge. Those are things that would make this question great. Then there's some things that maybe make the question less great. So things that are, you know, like a yes or no question. So if you, things where the answer is, you know, where you could perhaps use the internet to search for the answer to your question pretty easily. Things that might require a story that really has so much context. It takes more than 10, 15, 20 minutes just to explain what's going on. Now, this is, you know, like there are times where some of your challenges are so deep and you need help kind of unpacking it and trying to, you just kind of want a sounding board to really understand what the challenge is. Like it's just everything is a bit overwhelming, and sometimes that will lead to needing a bit more time to explain. So again, play by ear, see what makes sense, and you can also ask your group to help you unpack that. And if you make that request early on, you say, hey, I've got a really, I don't even know what's going on. I just feel overwhelmed. Can you just listen to me and help me unpack this? Then maybe your group can ask you questions to help guide you as they hear more about your story and your situation. So here's some example questions that we would consider, you know, maybe a little bit easier to fit into this structure, and maybe something that doesn't fit quite as well. So for instance, a great question might be, I'm considering going back to work because we're struggling financially, but I'm not sure if it would make it harder to homeschool. So I think already in this group, we've heard a little bit of some people are working, some people are not, and are working a little bit less, I guess. And thinking about, you know, what would it be like to actually go to full-time work? So I'm asking this question allows people who are doing full-time work to say, hey, in my experience, ABC, like this is, you know, what I liked about it. This is what maybe was more challenging. This is maybe where, you know, my advice for you, if you're thinking of this, and here are some questions I have for you to think about, etc. Another great question might be, my family is unsupportive of my homeschool journey and it's really affecting my relationships. I'm not sure how to approach this. This is an issue we hear a lot, is there's a lot of judgment around people who homeschool. There's some sort of weird bias against it. I don't know if anyone here faces that, but if it is a question that we've heard before, and this is a great one again to dive into with your HSG. Just to say, hey, like, how do other people handle this when people are being unsupportive of the homeschool journey? And just hearing those experiences can help you kind of unpack what to do here. A less useful question for this format might be something that's too too very, very, very narrow, where it's yes or no. So someone's saying, like, using the time just to discuss, has anyone used master books before? And that might be okay. So maybe everyone says no, and then it's kind of over. And maybe someone says yes. So then it's good to have some follow-up questions there. So maybe saying like, oh, what did you like about it? What did you dislike about it? Why did you pick master books? What made it stand out? And just kind of going a little bit more in depth so that the experience might be more useful for everyone in the group as well, because I think everyone is constantly thinking about curriculum. So hearing just how other people have kind of experienced and chosen their curriculum, I think can be really useful experience. Here is a meeting outline template that we suggest. We would say the moderator and note taker work together to create a fresh copy, maybe 1 to 2 days before the meeting. Ideally, at least 24 hours before the meeting, everyone would add their check-in of how they're doing and maybe their question they would want to discuss. And then it would be ideal if everyone reviews the doc before the meeting, maybe 10 minutes before, so everyone's had a chance to fill it in. Or of course, if I think everyone's really busy here, if it makes sense just to allocate time during the meeting to say, hey, we're going to take 5 minutes. Can everyone fill out this doc? And then we're going to take 5 minutes and read it. That's also totally fine. Your group can decide what makes sense for your group and the dynamics there. These are all just suggestions. And finally, of course, as discussed before, confidentiality is important. So, you know, we would suggest not recording, but you can talk about as a group. If you find it useful to record so that there's people, if your whole group wants to record so that everyone can like review the video later, then, you know, do what you want to do. But we, in my personal experience, usually these meetings are not recorded just to keep it feeling a bit more private. And then so finally, what happens next? So we, as Quinta mentioned, we've taken time to match you all in groups of 3 to 4 parents based on your time availabilities. You'll see here we said you'll be connected on Circle. So Circle is actually a community platform similar to Facebook. I'll give you a quick preview of what it looks like, but you'll use it to talk to each other in your own groups, and then you can also use it to talk to the wider Homey community. So even if you decide after this meeting, you say, hey, I don't know if I really can commit to all these meetings with support groups, but like I'm interested in just staying connected to other homeschool parents, that is a potential option. And then we could have you be in the wider community group, but then maybe not in a specific accountability or support group, just in case your availability just doesn't make sense. And so after you get connected, we would ask you to schedule your first session, likely based on the time you're all available, and then to get going and to ask questions to us, reach out, etc. It's really kind of your group and what you want to do. We've set up some guidelines and we wanted to bring you all together, but we really want to just see what you make of it. So yeah, we have some time for some questions. So curious on what your questions are. And then as mentioned, I can also share what that Circle platform looks like, perhaps after giving y'all some time to ask some questions. So what are your questions? I'll keep the recording on. And again, if you don't want to come on the camera, just ask your question out loud, or feel free to type it in the chat. And if there's no, yeah.
Did you want to go through Circle first, just in case they had questions about Circle as well?
Yeah, okay, I can do that. Okay, so this is Circle. Circle, as I said, it's very similar to Facebook. So just like Facebook, there's actually a feed of the different activities that happen, but it's only with this one community, this homeschool community. So I won't see updates from my friends or anyone else or any of my perhaps other Circle groups, but only from what's going on in Homey. So right now, actually, this is our first time previewing this to the wider community. So this is actually quite exciting. Quinta and I are the current members of the Homey Circle group. So it's, you know, we've just put in a few starter things to begin with. So you can see here, so Homey, our organization, has actually hosted some workshops. And we have all the replays here, whether it's on choosing curriculum, plan your first year, empowering learners, earning income at home. And so if you open that up, you can actually learn about what the workshop is. And then, sorry, my computer's going a bit slow, but this is a YouTube link that allows you to actually watch that whole workshop. In here, you can also ask some questions. So you can ask any homeschool questions. Again, we give some suggestions on what those questions might be more useful for people to to be able to answer your questions more specifically. We have the upcoming events, which are the Homey events that come up. Again, sorry, my computer's being slow. Yeah, okay, there we go. The calendar's there with the different events happening. Sharing tips and resources. This is a space, if there's a lot of cool links, there's a lot of stuff out there. I think some of you have mentioned, you know, scouring the web, and here's a space for you to share any cool links that you think that you really found useful to share with the other parents. Here's a space to celebrate wins. Homeschooling is really not easy, as we know. And we at Homey, we think it's really important to express gratitude to yourself. So we would love for you to just share any level of win. It can just be, you know, you had time to actually wash 4 dishes today. That's awesome. We will celebrate with you, whatever you would like. Here's the, again, workshop replays and a random section. Here's maybe if you have some memes or some GIFs about homeschool you want to share and things like that. So that belongs here. So you can see here, there's also these HSG groups. So we have 10 different times for the different groups, and they're locked. So you'll get added to your specific group here, where you can again have your own space to discuss, or maybe just use it to set up meetings, maybe share resources with each other, whatever you would like. And then I just kind of said a lot. So there's also this space here where it tells you, where it gives some directions on how to get started and what we're doing here in general, so that you don't have to remember everything that I've said just now. So those are the major parts of the Homey Circle group. And there's also a few links here in case you want to schedule a call with us, or email us, or learn more about the workshops in general, and I can let you explore this. But as you can see, it's pretty much like Facebook, except it's a little bit more personalized, specific for homeschooling, and allows some different sections to perhaps make it easier to organize all the different threads that happen with Facebook. So that is it from the Homey community end. Again, if you have any questions here, happy to address them. Although I am looking at the time, and Quinta, I actually have to run in a minute, so maybe I will leave you to answer the questions, but I can answer any immediate questions. Heather, please. Oh, yeah.
So I was just curious, how do we get on Circle?
Oh, I will send you an email after this call.
Oh,
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. So after, it's a great question. So after this session, we'll send out the recording to all the parents who had initially signed up, and we'll ask them again, like, are you really interested to join? The 4 of you have showed up here, so we kind of think you're interested to join, but we'll follow up again if you want to be an HSG. And then with 4 of you, we'll send you a direct email. That's easy. But for everyone else, we need to see when people are, who wants to really commit, and then we might have to do some rearranging of the timings again. Cool. Quinta, you're on mute.
So does this time work for each one of you on this call? Or is there something else you would want to think about? Because we went with what times you had shared on your forms.
Dosha says yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible. It definitely mornings would be rougher. That's when I'm more one-on-one with the girls. But I mean, if I know ahead of time, then I can just purposely plan something to keep them busy during that time, whenever it is.
I'll go with whatever time everyone else wants to go with, because I can be flexible as well. Yeah, because I like the group we have here, so hopefully I get to be in the group